and welcome to another episode of People with Issues. My guest this week is my good friend Sean from Michigan, who hosts the channel Basement Comics. I first encountered Sean, I think, just after he'd uploaded his first video about 5 months ago, I think it was. And it was really good to see, apart from talking about what he'd been picking up that week, and the way he talks is very, very conversational. He's in his comic room, he's chatting away to the camera. It's really relaxed, and he goes to some lengths to sort of explain his thoughts about stuff, which is great. But also in that video, you get to see part of his 20-mile round trip by bike, along with his son Henry in the carrier on the back of the bike, as they traverse the beautiful Michigan countryside to the comic shop. So it's quite unusual. Lots of great videos, lots of great features. So I hope you enjoy this, and I'll see you on the other side.
Okay.
Sean, thanks very much for joining me, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Okay, we're giggling because somebody forgot to press record when we started the episode, but we're here now. We're going. Okay, so you're in the great state of Michigan.
I
And
am.
the first video I saw of yours, I think it was just after you posted your first video, it wasn't only you going to your local comic shop, it was some video of you cycling to your local
Yes.
comic shop through the wilderness of Michigan with young Henry in the carrier attached to the back of the bike,
Yes.
which was fantastic. Does he like that, or do you make him do it?
No. He likes it. He's a big fan of the comic book shop. Probably a little too big of a fan running around in there. Thankfully, the shop is cool with it because he's so used to running around this area of the house. But he really likes the bike. And I've always biked ever since I was a kid to my comic shop.
Yeah.
Kind of always tried to pick. We have quite a few shops around here, and I've kind of always tried to aim for the one that's within reasonable biking distance. And by reasonable biking distance, I mean that shop is probably, it's like a round trip of 20 miles. So it gets him out of the house and my wife a little break.
And this is why
You know, she looks forward to Wednesdays now because she's like, hey, they're going to be gone for a few hours.
And this is why you look unusually fit for a comic collector.
Right. Well, I won't lie. That was the other part of it is, I know there's a stereotype type of the comic book guy. And so the biking helps fight that. No, good. You look great.
Oh, that's cool. So how long have you been collecting?
I started collecting in the early 90s. I came in due to the X-Men cartoon. Would have been like many a 90s kids, I believe that my first exposure to like the world of comics was through, X-Men the animated series, the Spider-Man show, Batman the animated series, like that time period.
All righty.
So
was
that was sort of.
Was that a case of loving the cartoons and then wanting to get the comics, or how did you?
Yeah, that is exactly how it went down. So my first comic was purchased because I went to the store. I like begged my mom after watching one X-Men cartoon where I was like, I've got to see more of this. And so we went to the store and I bought this Gambit action figure. Here, one is in the package, and it came with. The glare is terrible. I'm going to open all of these.
Okay.
So it came with this, which would be my first comic book, Uncanny X-Men Annual number 17. And if you recall, in 1993, they did this like initiative where it was like every annual came in a poly bag.
Yes.
With a ridiculous trading card where they introduced some new character.
Yeah.
And so I always laugh when people are like, when sort of like newcomers to the hobby or reading comics are like, oh, it's a lot to get into, because this first issue, it involves the villain Mastermind, and he is like on his deathbed and reaches out to Jean Grey for things that he did long in the past. And so most of this issue takes place like in a mind game, which I was unaware of. And
Uh-huh.
so I always laugh because, like, I was, this being my first comic, I was very confused as to, like, in the comic book, Iceman is the leader of the X-Men, and
Oh
he is
yeah.
not. Um, so for a few weeks, I was very confused about who this was, but it was a good introduction, and that got the bug for me, and I didn't stop.
And was that the one you showed us there? Was that the actual first copy?
Yes, this one is my original. I pick up because it's like a quarter comic, you know.
Uh-huh.
So I occasionally pick them up to rescue them from the throes of the dollar bins.
Oh, that's cool.
Occasionally.
It's nice when you've got the original copy. It's quite lucky. Um,
Yeah, I've lucked out that I have moved all over the place and traveled a lot. And the one thing I held on to was my comic collection, as well as the toys and my record collection. Those were the two things where I was like, these are coming with me no matter what.
and there's a couple of things in that we have to get into, which I
Sure.
understand from either things you've said in some of your videos or things that we spoke about in our preliminary chat.
Yes.
Um, Holding on to your comics. Now that's been a thing you've always done. So give us a sense of the size of your collection.
Let's see. I can tell you right off the bat, it is 16,000 and 71.
16,071. That's impressive. That's
Yes. And
impressive.
if it was a pie chart, it is 100% Marvel.
Really?
There's the that month of like DC versus Marvel in the 90s when they did that crossover before the big falling out. And they did that month where the characters were combined. That was about the majority of the pie slice of DC for me. Marvel
Oh,
just got their hooks in me, and
the what was it, Amalgam series, was
yes,
it? With
yes,
Iron Lantern and things like that.
yes. I have a that month. I wound up. I was going to spend the weekend at my grandparents' house. My mom took me to the comic book shop after school, and I showed up not expecting Amalgam Comics. And she was like, "Do you want to pack any of your other comics?" And I was like, "No, we're going to the store. I'm going to get my new books. I'll have that." And it was Amalgam Comics week, and I just that was the worst because it was confusing. I had no background whatsoever with the DC characters, so I
Mhm.
always laugh when I read those books or look at those books because it was such a I didn't know what half of them were about.
I was in the same boat, and it was kind of bonkers. It was it was fun, unusual, but definitely bonkers.
I liked it as like an initiative, but to have that be my only comic book that weekend was rough because it sort of dropped you in the middle of a story, which is great. But like there was no, and I liked that they were like to be continued, but you knew it was never going to be continued.
Yeah. So kicking off the I mean you named a few sort of cartoons there, but X-Men was the main
Oh
thing, yeah.
yeah, yeah. X Men was the through line through it all.
And
That was definitely
any particular standout characters for you?
my favorite comic book is Nightcrawler.
Why?
Um, so I grew up in a pretty religious household. Um, and so I find myself okay. So this is a I had grew up in a religious household, had planned to go to school. I was going to join the seminary, and I particularly enjoyed the fact that Nightcrawler, for me, has always been a really good example of faith and how to um, be an ambassador of that.
Mhm.
Because I love the relationship between Logan and Nightcrawler, in that he's not judgmental towards Logan. He's just his friend and there for guidance and not judgment. And I sort of always appreciated that.
Yeah.
And I like the swashbuckling, like Captain Blood the old Errol Flynn pirate movie is like one of my favorite movies of all
Uh-huh.
time. So I sort of like the swashbuckling pirate angle. He just seemed like a really fun, not stodgy um, person of faith, which I kind of identified growing up in that environment where I was like, oh, you can have fun and laugh, and not everything has to be morose and serious, and that type of vibe.
That's very cool. I like that. It doesn't surprise me that from watching your videos, the level of thought, the depth of thought that goes into most of the things that you talk about.
That's
And
very nice.
you articulate it very well. And I kind of had a sense that I thought if I just drop that question, if I ask you sort of what why is he your favorite, there's going to be it's not going to be like the costume or the bamf or the there's going to be something about the character's personality and background stuff like that.
Yeah,
It's very very cool. I have to say I like him as well. I'm gonna circle back slightly because when when you I mean, you sort of told us early on. We got straight in there with the kind of the size of your collection, the fact that you didn't give any of the
yeah,
stuff up, and when we zoomed out so you could show us the book, um, probably anyone watching this will have gone, "Wow, look look at this guy's basement."
yeah,
So, which I guess you kind of need if you're hoarding 15,000 and odd comics. But
yeah,
also, and it's something I kind of want to ask you about. We don't sort of overly focus on the YouTube side of things, but there's more to this. Your channel's called Basement
yes,
Comics, and can you explain that to me? Tell me, and you shared it with me, but can
yeah,
you sort of share the story
yeah.
behind that?
So as a kid, so I grew up in an area that had like comic book stores within just a few miles, like I mean, multiple shops. And there was a shop near my grandparents' house that I could bike to called the Classic Comic and Movie Center. And it's this very well known store amongst like the Detroit crowd
Yeah.
of comic book fans. And there was a fellow that worked there. His name is Dennis McDermott, and his nickname was Mister Mint. And he was like just so he passed away a few years ago. It's 2 years ago. It's very sad for all of us. And he worked at Classic, and then I moved to a different shop called Back to the Past, and he worked there for years. He became really good friends with all of us. He was well into his 60s and like still played hockey, like with younger kid. Like he was like just a ball of life. I never saw him angry. Um, and he was just a great like ambassador to comics to kids, great with me when I was 12 and equally great with me when I was 35, 40. And so my neighbor, I lived next door to one of the employees at my old shop who
Mhm.
worked with Denny day in and day out, and he collected this book of we would all keep quotes of things that Mr. Mint would say
Oh.
just because he was this off the wall character. So I was gonna say man, myth, mint, and so I was gonna share two just to give a feel for the guy. So his first was I was at a Bruce Lee marathon in 1975 at the Grand River Drive-In when I decided what I wanted to do with my life. Absolutely nothing. And then this one is my favorite. Olamore by Erasure makes me melt like butter in a pan.
That's
And so
awesome.
he was just this great character in our lives who was like, a part of all of us kind of in that area growing up getting into comics. So as I was kicking around a lot of names because like I had the idea for the channel and what I wanted to do with the Corner Box Classics, and I knew I wanted to film like the bike ride up to the shop. That bit of it's mostly for myself as Henry grows. But I felt like it's part of what I do, so I can incorporate it into the channel. And I'd kicked around a few ideas. Like I was for a while I had like sat on the title My Golden Age because I was going to talk about the comics I grew up with, and it's like my personal golden age. But like that, I was like, that's not. And then one day I was like, the comics are in the basement, and I was like, Mr. Mint was a big part of it. So I basement, and I
Yeah,
was like, perfect. And I don't know if it's perfect, but it's perfect for me.
it is. And it's not the you're not the first person to that I've spoken to who's I think quite a few people have spoken about events or people in their lives that have kind of had some influence on their comic collecting or how they've taken it forward. And a couple of people have brought memories of influential characters like that into what they do or what they say on the
Yeah.
channel. And it's a really nice way to honor them and keep them a part of your comic collecting. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh yeah.
Now, I need to ask you about something we spoke about before.
Okay.
And it was one of those things where afterwards I was like, did he say that? Is that right? Is that right? And unless I misremember and it ruins this whole video, I think you told me you own every X book that's come out, every X-Men book.
Yes. Yes.
So you've got so from
I do not
68.
have issue number one. I'm missing issue number one. X-Men number
Ah,
one. So everything except for number one. I have many reprints of number one, but I have first print copies of everything from two to the present.
to the present. So
Yes.
that so is that so just X-Men or X Factor?
X Factor, X Force, Excalibur, New X Men, Exiles, Wolverine.
There's ones there I haven't even heard of. So
Yeah,
I'm 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 going
and
to
so my collection was sort of for years. So um, it was kind of like I, I, so a few years back, the higher ups at Marvel, because they didn't own the movie rights to the X Men,
yeah.
wouldn't allow new characters to be created and kind of sideline them, and this upset me greatly. And so I started like getting rid of some other series that I have in order to kind of go through and get everything X-Men. And I mean, like, there is an issue of Wildcats from the 90s that has a panel of Scott and Jean on their honeymoon in the background. And that is filed in the room right after their wedding when they would be on their honeymoon. And I kind of built this super elaborate spreadsheet that showed the chronological story. So everything in the room is kind of organized in this way of like ROM issues 15 and 16 have X-Men appearances. That shows up after Uncanny X-Men 145. So they're filed after Uncanny X-Men 145 in this great X-Men storyline. It's kind of how I did it.
So my knowledge of X related things isn't fantastic because I was getting the X Men in the 80s, and I think at some point in the 90s they started producing all of these different titles, and
Yeah.
I ditched all of them. Either in the 90s, the early 2000s, just everything mutant related, got rid of it. But I remember such things as was it exterminators
Yeah.
and power pack.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I have a complete run of Power Pack.
Okay,
Read it.
so
Loved it.
so having got my collection out of storage and got back into it this year, I had no X comics.
Okay.
I've picked up a few, so so this should be there's only a few. I've got maybe 7 or 8. So I've picked up a few. I don't think this will be difficult, but I have to test this and see if we can catch you out, right?
Okay.
First of all, this should be straightforward. This is one of my favorites, a recent acquisition.
Yes. It's
Issue
great
issue
cover.
Issue 44. Okay, that's easy. One of my favorite ones that I was desperate to get again.
Classic cover.
Got that. Yeah, of course you
Yep.
have, because that they're X-Men. They're kind of now.
All
How
right.
about how about?
Yes, I have it.
Of course you have. You know, I know from our conversations. You know, Lunch Money Mike.
I
Have you
do.
seen a copy of this that he's got?
Yeah, signed by everyone. That's crazy.
Would you believe I got this from Lunch Money Mike?
Oh, that's exciting. That's a good one to get from Lunch Money Mike.
But you know, he was like, "Take this." I said, "It's the X Men, though," and he was like, "You've got to have Heroes for Hope. You've got to have." Didn't give me the signed one though. Okay, what about this? I think I've got an X book you might not have. Are you
Okay.
ready for this?
Yes. You know what? I don't have that.
X, the thing that lives. I've had to resort to cheating to catch you out. Obviously, it's Tales to Astonish. It's not a
Isn't that
mutant.
the first mutant time mutant is mentioned in the Marvel universe?
What?
Is that the first time that mutant is mentioned in the Marvel? I know there's an amazing fan. No, that's Amazing Fantasy.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think
I
you're safe.
think
I think
some.
you're safe. I think you're safe. I think you're
I
all right.
okay. No. I think in Amazing Fantasy 15, there's a backup story where they mention the word mutant, and people argue whether or not that's technically
Oh, I can
a mutant.
imagine.
So
This is this is like a lot of the sort of people seeing characters in old books and going, "Oh, it's a prototype for."
right, yeah. Or there's a poster or an ad for something.
Okay, so when it came to well, I'll tell you what we'll do, right? Okay, I'll tell you what we'll do then. Given this impressive collection and slightly bonkers obsession with X type. I mean, that's seriously impressive. I thought, if you'd said, I mean, God, I love Daredevil, but I stopped in 2011. I was like, right, beyond that, you know,
Yeah,
but you just keep going. That's a lot of books. So let me put this to you. Imagine this scenario, if you will.
will do.
Young Henry's what, 3? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Let's imagine Henry's birthday, right? He's very excited. So we're going to have a party for Henry because it's his birthday. You get on the phone to Marvel and you say, look, I've collected all these books since forever. I'm, huge fan. 100% of my collection is Marvel, apart from the amalgam stuff. Could you send a couple of guys round for my son's birthday party? Because he might not care, but you'll love it. And they're like, sure, we will. Who would you like? And you're like, well, I want Nightcrawler because it's Henry's favorite, and Iceman. Okay. And they're like,
Okay.
yep, no problem. On the day, Mrs. Basement has got Henry off somewhere so you can set everything up. So they're away, they're safe. You've got everything set up for the party. Doorbell goes, you open it, it's the Iceman. And he's like, I'm really sorry. Nightcrawler's bamfed into an electricity pylon and he's out
Oh,
of the game kind of thing. Guys are sending a replacement. It'll be here in a minute. Don't know who it is. And you're like, well, okay, I'm a bit disappointed, but it's for Henry. A few minutes later, doorbell goes, Human Torch.
oh no.
So these guys are helping you put the nibbles out and the drinks and stuff like that. And you suddenly realize Human Torch, Iceman, Iceman starts melting. And you're like, well, I'm going to have to clean this up. I'm going to have to get a mop. Then suddenly you're like, wait a minute, we're in the lounge, basement's downstairs. It's going to
Yep.
flood my comics. You've got time to save one book. One
Okay.
book.
All right.
What's it going to be, Sean?
Okay. I'm gonna take a page from Paul. episode because he said, I have two hands. I can grab two things. So we'll
No,
start with the first.
we haven't had a
I
Paul.
would I would pick up what?
We haven't had a Paul.
Peter. All right. Crap.
We've had a
We're gonna
Peter.
start.
All
We're gonna start this over again. Make a note.
right. Okay. Go for your life.
So I would take a note from Peter's episode, and since he said he has two hands, he can grab two books. I would first choose this tattered old copy of Uncanny X-Men number 101, signed to me by Chris Claremont. Um, this is there was a day when I first got into comic collecting where and this will age me to any younger viewers, where my mom on a Saturday morning woke me up and was like, "Hey, let's grab the phone book and you can look up comic book stores in this state and we'll just drive around and go to different comic book stores."
Yeah.
And this was the very first quote unquote old back issue that I ever got.
Oh,
So I would absolutely pick, and this thing has been read and loved and flipped through by Chris Claremont, and I adore it. And then, since it's right next to it, first Christmas that I was into comics, my folks got me this Dark Phoenix Saga trade because that cartoon had just aired. And
yeah.
so this was like the first trade paperback that I ever got as a kid. Gorgeous Bill Sienkiewicz cover.
Hmm.
And it has been my goal to get it signed by the creative team. So I have it signed by John Byrne. Claremont wrote dialogue in it. And the letterer, the great Tom Orzechowski, did this Banff in there for me.
Sweet.
And so this was the first comic book related Christmas present that I ever got.
Well, I,
So that's
I can see why they would both be so dear to you. So what I can tell you is, obviously realizing the situation, you hastily explain to the guys, hurtle down to the basement, grab your X-Men 101. You're turning for the door and you're like, oh, but my trade paperback.
exactly.
And the torch says, it's okay, I've got it.
That's a bummer.
Because if I didn't let Peter away with taking two books,
That's fair. That's
I'm
fair.
sure still not getting away with it. So that's no. I mean, it's. I thank you for sharing why both of those are so important to you, and we'll all fondly remember that trade paperback, which is now ashes.
Yes,
Um, and we'll wish Henry all the best for his hastily rearranged birthday party.
that's
But
right.
well done. That was impressive. We like that. So now there was another thing that I wanted to ask you specifically about. It came up before. I just want you to kind of outline this if you can, because you explain this in full detail in a video on your own channel, and I'm keen for people to hear the original story. But can you just sort of outline your experience with the printed letter?
Yes,
I think it was a copy of the Avengers, was it?
yes, it is. I have it right here.
You do. Oh, that's cool.
Avengers 164. So I have been for a few years doing a. If you watch the channel or are going to check out the channel, I started. One of the things I do in the channel is a thing called Cornerbox Classics, where I read as though I had biked up to the store in 1978 or whenever this issue came out and picked up what came out that week. And then I kind of reviewed those as like a classic, like this is what I would have picked up if I had been collecting comics that year. And here's what I think of them. Because I've been doing a read of all 16,000 Marvel comics in order of them being released. So one night I sat down with Avengers 164 And as I do, um, I read the letters pages because I find them fascinating, and it's much more polite. Like if someone has to sit down, pen to paper back in the day, and write a letter, some of them were very curt, but for the most part, it's better than the internet. So as I was reading this one particular letter, agreeing with the guy that was writing the letter, I got to his name and was like, "Oh, hey, that's weird. That's my aunt's name." And then I looked at the area and I was like, "Well, that's in my area. I'm very curious if this person is related." And so via social media, I reached out and I was like, "Hey, this is who I am. This is how we would be related. Uh, if you don't read comics, none of what I just said makes sense. But if you do, that's crazy." And a few days later, he reached back and he was like, "Absolutely, Sean." He's like, "I am 100% that person." And he explained that he still had quite a few of his boxes from his childhood, and that he wrote this while he was in college. And he invited me out to go through his collection because he was wanting to get rid of it.
So I think we'll save the end of that. We'll
Yeah,
save the end of that because like I say, I'm keen for people to visit your channel and go to the original source to find out what happened next, the proper cliffhanger. But I mean, that's remarkable. The chances of that, because we came onto this because when we were talking about enjoying all of the content in comic books, not just the story,
yeah,
but you've got like advertisements and all sorts of other details that we find interesting. And we got to talking about letter pages. And I mean, I've got to confess, when you started telling me about, looking up information on someone who printed a
yeah,
letter, I was slightly concerned. I thought this is
yeah,
an episode that's never going to happen. But but that's remarkable. Identifying a relative, and also,
yeah.
and anyone who's watching, you need to hear the rest of this, and you need to go to Sean's channel to find out. We're doing a crossover.
That's right.
A couple of times you mentioned the Corner Box Classic on your channel, which I
Yes.
absolutely love. And I will say to anyone who's not seen that yet, I mean, especially I think for someone, for me, and impressive for someone who kind of really started collecting and got into comics in the 90s, to go back and pick a month, some 10 years or so prior, and go, okay, what would I have been reading if I'd gone up to the comic shop this month? And am I right in saying so you'll basically show and tell on some
Yep.
comics from that month, which is
Yeah, basically the focal point of that show is, so I've started probably like 3 years ago, started reading, Fantastic Four from the beginning. And then when Avengers, X-Men, Amazing Spider-Man picked up, I went right along with it. And so um, you know, I have a whole run of Champions. So when Champions premieres, I pull that into Cornerbox Classics. When Miss Marvel premiered, I pulled that in. Defenders, just everything that I have, and it's quite extensive. I sort of just go, this is what came out that week. This is what I would have picked up. Here's what I think, as though I'm a YouTuber going back in time.
and this is absolutely true. But I can remember saying it was either to my wife or to one of my friends who was kind of asking about stuff you do on the channel. I have said before, one of the things I would love to do is basically look at the comics that came, I mean, not like all of the comics. It would have been Marvel, but look at the comics that came out on that checklist you used to get in the comics.
Yep.
Um, get those. This this January. Where are we? 2026. So say January 1976. This month I'd get all the comics that came out January 1976. Next month I'd get all the comics that came out in February. Ridiculously expensive for me to attempt to do that. The ones you're showing all come from your collection. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's, wow.
Yeah. I sort of lucked out in getting into comics at the time that I did in the 90s and kind of not losing focus. it was just sort of, I'm the youngest of five kids, and I have two sisters and two brothers. And the two brothers, I always laugh because their their interests are like seasonal. Like, oh, I'm really into this for 6 months. And I was just never that as a kid. I locked in on stuff and stayed with it.
Uh,
And when comics got a hold of me, I just stuck with, like, I loved it. And in the 90s, you could still get books from the 80s, 70s, 60s relatively. It's not like it is today. I
mm,
could never I could never do this today.
mm,
Um, but I kind of lucked out. I know we talked in the preliminary chat that, and I've mentioned it on my channel, that uh, my mother passed when I was a teen, right before I graduated high school, and I wound up um, being taken in by like my a member of my favorite band when I was a kid. Sort of took me in, and I went on tour with them, and that's why I didn't wind up going to seminary school. Was I was like rock and roll. The devil got his hooks in me. Um, and so we would get, you'd get like what was known as a per diem, which is like a certain
mhm.
amount of allotted amount from the club would give you for food or whatever. And I was, early 20s at the time, so I could survive on nothing. And I spent the rest on comics as we were traveling around.
Quite.
So I sort of lucked into, kind of finding back issues all over the country and stuff like that. And that's kind of how I built the collection.
And again, there's a nice little segue because you were talking about you've got, and this takes some discipline as well. It's a feat in its own right. You've sort of gone
Yeah.
back to the start of a run in the '60s and read all the way through. But you've
Yes.
gone a step further with that as well, haven't you?
Okay. So when I initially did the Great X-Men reread, where I read everything from issue number one to the present, I gave myself a test to um, expand my musical horizons by only listening to records that came out at the same time that the comics came out as I was reading them. So, like, X-Men number one, not to get too lost in the weeds here, but a child of the 90s would look at the 60s and be like, oh, it's the Beatles. But this allowed me the opportunity to discover, like, the Searchers and other things that were out there that weren't just what has become like, oh, this was the thing that was out there.
Yeah.
Um, and it expanded, like I always, I grew up, interested in alternative music of the 90s, and then kind of like my classic rock would have been new wave, and that kind of opened up a lot of, there's a lot of records. Like last night my wife was talking to me about a New Order record that she really likes, that she would have never, and she was like, what were we doing when you were listening to that? And I was like, oh, I was reading New Mutants and you were doing puzzles. And she's like, oh yeah, I remember that. And that was sort of like, even she found some music that she normally wouldn't have listened to, because I was doing this very regimented. Like if a book came out in March of 1983, this is what we were listening to while I was going through it.
So every month you'd effectively have the set of comics and like a playlist.
Yeah, it was. So this is going to be the part where you're going to be like, "This is mania." So a I have an Instagram page for the show, but I have a personal page, and on my personal page, I it wasn't digital music. It all had to be albums that I owned, and if I didn't own the album, I had to get it. So it expanded the music collection, and then I would, with every issue, I took a photo of the album and the the record that it was paired with.
I mean, that is a full-on immersive experience. That's
It was an interesting kind of like, because obviously, you know, comics are counterculture and pop culture and kind of the times. And that gave me another lens to kind of, you could sort of see um, a little bit of that like trickle through in the culture of the comics. You could feel, particularly like I was reading X-Men when doing this, and you could sort of see that happen in the book. The music culture start appearing in the book, the way characters dressed, even occasionally there were albums that were mentioned in the books, and it all sort of lined up
Yeah.
in kind of an interesting little experiment.
I mean, given, when I started this, I love finding out little nuances about collectors and things that they're thinking and the reasons we do things in different ways and different little things matter to us. You've got some deep, deep core activity going on there in relation to comic collecting, and it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. I don't think anyone is going to watch this, and I mean, first, it might be like, "Wow, what a nutcase!"
Yeah.
In a flash, they're going to go, "I love that. It's brilliant. We'd all love to do that," and I think that takes some discipline as well. So definitely applause for that. Um, in relation to the corner box thing and that incredible journey, um, a question I had for you: um, if you could time travel to corner box classic period, or basically a month, either one that you've already covered or one that you intend to, um, when would it be? And do you have some books to support that?
I do. I'm trying to. This is the other part of my mania.
Uh huh.
With the 16,071 comics, they're all in Mylars, which would drive, like, some of my friends that are into comics are like, you really have an entire collection of Power Pack in Mylars? And I do. Um, okay, so my time period that I would have chosen, let me make sure that I have the date right. I believe it's 78. Yes. Okay. December 1978. If I could corner box classic myself into a time period,
Uh
it
huh.
would be December 1978, because my favorite artist is John Byrne. And on December 5th, you would have gotten Amazing Spider Man 190, drawn by John Byrne.
Yeah.
The following week, you would have got Uncanny X-Men 119, drawn by John Byrne. And the following week after that, on December 19th, you would have gotten my favorite issue of Marvel Team Up featuring Spider-Man and Red Sonja.
Wow.
And so those are all, this just shows like how, I mean, 3 books in a month for John Byrne to draw. That's crazy.
I think that's as good a reason as any. And do you know what, off the top of your head, what you'd be listening to? Because
Oh, and 19, I don't know off the top of my head. It's been a while. I should have thought about that one beforehand.
do you know
I
what?
do.
Having heard what I've heard in the last period of time we've been talking, I'm kind of surprised that you didn't. Look, but
Yeah.
there was no judgment there. Don't you worry. That's absolutely fine. Don't do it now because I sense that.
I was like, I have the spreadsheet on my computer right now. I can pull up exactly what I was listening to during Uncanny X-Men 119.
Well,
Um,
the funny thing is that's it's probably, I don't know exactly when it was that a neighbour of mine first handed me a pile of British reprints of Marvel comics and got me into Marvel comics. But it must have been within a few months of that. So an amazing period. But also at the time we're recording this, we are where are we? Sort of just past mid January. In the last couple of weeks, I've been picking up a lot of Bronze Age Marvel, which is great because it's a period I like. But I've been doing a lot more reading recently, and I've been reading a lot of the Bronze Age stuff that's been coming in. And wow, a fabulous period to read
yeah.
stuff. I'm really enjoying it, and even some of the stuff that's doesn't feel as good quality wise. There's something enjoyable about it. Maybe it's a nostalgia thing. I don't know, but
Yeah, so being a person who got into the comics in the 90s, I've often defended the 90s. And there was a time period where I was coming from a place of absolute, like, I was wrong. And then going back and reading the 60s, 70s, and 80s stuff, I firmly believe now that the 70s and the 80s were the two best eras.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I love the 90s for my own personal, like, the ads make me think of being a kid,
Yeah.
and there's that nostalgia warm blanket feeling. But as far as like firing on all cylinders, like writers, artists, it was the first time that a group of writers had come in that had been fans, that truly treated it with the reverence that it needed. I love the 60s quirkiness of like the Silver Age, but Stan was writing stuff he didn't care. I love Stan, but like he didn't care. And there was no concern about continuity because parents were throwing the books out.
Mm.
And then you got this wave of writers and artists who were like, no, 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 I've held on to these. They're treasures. And there is this storyline going on that treated it with the reverence that I would like it to be treated with.
Absolutely. I think that's as good an explanation as you could get of why you think that about that period. Right. Okay, Sean.
Yes.
Let's there's so many of the things we talked about are, interlaced, which has been fantastic. I'm gonna put a break there. There was a particular odd question I asked you, and that was if you could be a non superpowered character in a comic book, who would it be?
Debuting in Daredevil number 153, I choose Ben Urich.
Oh,
I think
sorry.
I think
Oh, so would
I
I.
think Ben Urich would be such a good choice. Like I had rattled around Moira McTaggart because of my X-Men love, but she was revealed recently to have powers. And then I was like, no, it's Ben Urich. There's not a better, like J. Jonah Jameson. He's kind of a jerk, but like Ben being an investigative reporter in the Marvel universe would be very dangerous. But I mean, I don't want to get side by Bullseye, but you know, or the lung cancer.
But I mean,
But hanging out in Hell's Kitchen with Daredevil would be pretty cool.
he's an awesome character, isn't he?
That
Honestly,
my so my actual single issue run of Daredevil. This was my start. When I was like, where do I go back to start my run of Daredevil? I was like, I started at the Frank Miller run, and then I was like, no, 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 it has to be when Ben Urich. My eyes for Daredevil, like, will be Ben Urich's eyes.
yeah, yeah.
That's how I'm gonna filter reading Daredevil.
It probably no surprise that a Daredevil fan like myself, when I looked at that, I was like, oh, I quite like that question, but I naturally thought, who would I choose? And it was pretty easy for me. It was that was Ben Urich, but at my first US comic book was Daredevil 164 when he's in hospital having been beaten up by the Hulk, and Ben Urich comes to visit him. So straight away, we kind of had knowledge of Ben Urich from the start. So
Yeah.
always a classic figure. That's really cool. Thank you for that.
Oh
And
yeah.
the last book question I had for you, and I think a nice because it's been such an exciting episode this, and we've been off on
Oh, that's very nice.
we've been on some tangents. So something I hope is nice and safe. Can you show me a book with a cover that just always makes you happy?
Yes. My all-time favorite cover in comics is Uncanny X-Men 115. I have this signed to me by John Byrne, Chris Claremont, and Rick Parker, who was the letterer on this issue. And Sauron is my favorite X-Men. I wouldn't even call him a villain because it's, not he sort of fell into becoming Sauron by rescuing the love of his life. I love those Roy Thomas, Neil Adams issues when he was introduced, but I love this cover. I often talk in my channel about when I got into comics. The day that I got that Uncanny X-Men Annual 17, my childhood best friend, who I'm still, he's Henry's godfather, and we're still incredibly close. I called him up and I was like, uh, so I went out and got a comic and a toy, and I was worried that he was going to be like, this is not cool. And he was like, I did the exact same thing. And he had bought a Cyclops toy. And so, and you know, so his folks own some property up in northern Michigan that we would spend a lot of time in, right on a river. And so when we would go play with our toys, that was always the Savage Land. So I've had this like very warm feeling for the Savage Land and love Sauron. And so that is definitely, you've got Storm in a bikini, Wolverine attacking the X-Men, Nightcrawlers prominently displayed. So that is my favorite cover of all time.
And yeah, that's a very very cool cover. I like the way the X Men sort of on either side of the image there form
Yeah,
those leading lines.
Sauron's big
Oh, Sauron,
wings,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. That's very cool. Thank you for that, sir. Well, I think that was a good. I think that was a good question to calm us down. Um, Certainly, getting some sense of your comics journey and your thinking in comic terms, I think is a bit like reading the Defenders.
Yeah,
It's kind of, at the end of it, you can feel like inspired, exhilarated, quite tired. Um, it's just like, whoa, whoa. And
yeah,
that in summary means that without any doubt whatsoever, you have some issues, my boy.
I have issues.
There's the mug to prove it.
Yes,
Thanks so much for sharing them with us. Absolutely fantastic. A real pleasure.
thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
That's cool. So, you and I will have a few more words after we end the recording. For anyone else who's watching, sort of above all else, if you've not already subscribed to Sean's channel, get over and have a look, have a listen. You've been warned. You've been warned, but
Yeah,
you know, draw the curtains, put the lights off, get comfy, get in there and enjoy.
yeah.
Um, and yes, like and please, if you leave a comment, say hi to Sean, tell me what you think of the video, all that good stuff. Um, and I'll have some words for you afterwards. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
Pleasure. And there you have it. That is Sean. I told you there was some deep thinking going on there. I think he's got a really fascinating way of looking at collecting and reading and the order and discipline that he shows in the way he does things with his collection. The day that we did the recording, Sean released a video which was a tour of his comic room. You have to see this to believe it. I kid you not. If you're not already subscribed to Sean's channel, do get over there, subscribe. Look for the video. It will have been about 5-6 weeks before this one. Unbelievable, honestly. Make sure you leave comments. Let us know what you thought of the episode. Say hi to Sean. And remember, if you'd like to record your own episode, just get in touch with me. We'll have a wee chat and arrange something and share your journey with the world. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, stay groovy.